A private pilot blocked Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, from boarding his own jet, calling security without a second thought. What happened next cost him his entire career. The early morning haze wrapped the private airfield in a soft gray veil. The sky was a pale shade of blue, just starting to warm as the sun peeked over the horizon. A steady breeze rolled over the tarmac, stirring the dust like nature itself was whispering that something was coming. Jet engines idled in the distance, their low hum giving life to the silence. The sharp scent of jet fuel hung in the air, mixed with the crisp bite of dawn. Ground crew moved like clockwork, silent, precise, and small against the wide stretch of concrete. Then came the low growl of a matte black Escalade, its headlights cutting through the haze as it pulled onto the restricted access lane. The vehicle slowed to a graceful stop, tires crunching over gravel near the hangar. The back door opened. A boot hit the ground first, shiny black leather, laced tight. Then came a leg, thick with muscle under tailored black pants. Out stepped Dwayne Johnson. He wore a sleek black suit with a crisp white shirt open at the collar. No tie. Just clean, sharp lines. Over his eyes, a pair of dark shades sat like armor. His head was shaved smooth, catching the early light like polished stone. His body moved with calm grace, each step powerful, controlled, like a man used to walking into places he owned. In his right hand, he carried nothing but a small black duffel bag. No assistant, no entourage, just him. From across the tarmac, a man in a pilot's uniform stepped forward. He was in his mid-30s, with neatly combed blonde hair and a clean jawline. His nameplate read, Captain R. Whitman. His navy suit was freshly pressed, shoes shining. He held a clipboard in one hand and wore an expression like someone who believed the rules were the rules, no exceptions. Whitman raised his hand in the universal stop gesture. His voice was clipped, professional. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your credentials before I let you board." Dwayne didn't stop walking, but he did slow. His steps were deliberate now, his face calm. He took off his sunglasses and slid them into his inner jacket pocket. His eyes, dark and steady, met the pilot's. Not aggressive, not angry, just watching. "Doesn't matter who you are. Nobody boards without clearance," Whitman added, squaring his shoulders. There was silence. Even the wind paused. Dwayne stopped just 5 feet from him. He tilted his head slightly, one eyebrow raised. His voice, when he spoke, was deep but calm. Like distant thunder, controlled but unmistakable. "I own the damn jet," he said, voice steady. "I don't need clearance. I am the clearance the moment held," like a scene frozen in time. Behind the pilot, a ramp agent, a young Latino man in a neon vest, shifted uncomfortably. He lowered his radio, clearly sensing tension. A few feet away, a female ground dispatcher looked up from her tablet. Her brow furrowed. Captain Whitman didn't flinch, but the set of his jaw tightened. "Sir," he said, "I don't care who you say you are. We follow FAA protocol here, and I've never seen you before." Dwayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't make a move. But something in his eyes changed. That calm look of patience began to cool. He leaned in just slightly, voice a little quieter. "And maybe that's because you don't look past what you expect to see." The pilot hesitated. His mouth opened, but he said nothing. Behind them, a security SUV pulled up near the hangar. 2 guards stepped out, radios buzzing. They began to walk toward the group. Dwayne didn't break eye contact with Whitman. His breathing was even. He stood tall, solid, unshaken. The ramp agent stepped closer to the dispatcher. "Is that who I think it is?" She nodded slowly. "That's Dwayne Johnson. He owns the charter service now. I saw the board meeting notes." The guard closest to them touched his earpiece. "Security to dispatch. Do we have visual confirmation of the VIP?" A crackling voice came through the dispatch radio. "Confirmed. "That's Mr. Johnson. Let him through immediately." Captain Whitman turned his head, blinking as the voice came over his shoulder. He looked back at Dwayne. His face, pale before, was now flushing red. He opened his mouth, but again, no words came. Dwayne didn't smirk. He didn't gloat. Instead, he just put his sunglasses back on. Then he walked past the pilot, slow, steady, and gave a small nod to the security guard who stepped aside for him. No more words were needed. The pilot stood frozen, clipboard lowered at his side. The ramp agent let out a quiet "damn" under his breath. Dwayne stepped up the stairway into the cabin of his Gulfstream G650. The interior was cool and silent, lit by soft blue lights and soft cream leather seats. No one else was on board yet. His crew was waiting until he gave the go-ahead. He dropped his duffel by the seat near the window and sat down slowly. He leaned back, the leather groaning under his massive frame. For a moment, he sat still. Outside, the pilot was still standing in the same place, back ramrod straight, facing nothing. Dwayne looked out the window, fingers tapping lightly against the armrest. His face stayed calm, but his eyes betrayed a deeper thought. He'd been here before, judged, questioned, doubted, not because of what he'd done, but because of who he was and what people thought when they looked at him. Minutes later, the ground agent who had watched the whole thing pulled out his phone. He uploaded the short clip he'd taken from the moment Dwayne said, "I am the clearance," to the part where the pilot stepped back, like he'd been hit by truth itself. He didn't tag anyone, just wrote, "They tried to stop The Rock from boarding his own jet, and he said the coldest line I've ever heard." The video went live. Within 10 minutes, it had over 100,000 views. By the time the jet lifted off, the hashtag #IamTheClearance was trending. As the jet climbed into the morning sky, Dwayne leaned back in his seat. The city below faded into patterns of streets and clouds. The flight attendant, an older woman with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, offered him coffee. "Rough start to the morning, sir?" He smiled faintly. "Just a reminder," he said, taking the mug. "People see what they want to see." She nodded. "And then, some of us see who you really are." He gave her a grateful glance, then turned back to the window. The plane cut through the clouds, white vapor trailing behind like a signature. Inside, Dwayne sat still, staring forward, not angry, not even annoyed, just quietly resolved. The man who had been questioned was now flying above the world that tried to put him in a box. And somewhere, a pilot stood on a runway, realizing he'd just tried to gatekeep power from the very man who built the gate. The jet hummed steadily, slicing through layers of cotton-white clouds. High above the earth, the world looked quiet, distant, manageable. Dwayne sat with his seat reclined slightly, legs crossed. The sun spilled through the window, casting golden light across his features. He looked peaceful, until the silence broke. A soft buzz. His phone lit up. A message from his assistant, Maya Benton, popped on the screen. "Maya, emergency board meeting moved up. NYC arrival needs to happen ASAP. They want you in person." Dwayne sighed, his jaw tightening slightly. He hated boardroom politics, not because he couldn't handle them, but because half the time, he was the only one in the room who understood how real people lived. He tapped a response. "Dwayne. What's the reroute plan?" Seconds later, another message popped in. "Maya. Best option, land in Chicago for refuel plus coordinate with the East Coast shuttle. Less flashy, more direct. VIP terminal. Dockson, Dakika Durak." He nodded to himself. Efficient. He hit the intercom. "Brenda, change of plan. Let's touch down in Chicago. Small window, but I'll make it work." O'Hare International, private terminal lounge, 12:47 p.m. The lounge wasn't crowded. Just the usual mix of quiet luxury and hushed voices. Polished floors, Deep leather chairs, ambient jazz drifting from hidden speakers. But Dwayne didn't walk in unnoticed. A pair of businessmen in their 50s looked up from their laptops. A tall woman in an elegant pantsuit did a double take. Even the barista behind the espresso machine blinked twice. But Dwayne didn't strut. He didn't announce. He walked in with calm steps, carrying only his duffel, and nodded once to the receptionist. The woman stood up fast, a little flustered. "Mr. Johnson, welcome. Would you like your private suite?" He smiled. "Appreciate it, but I'll sit out here today. I'm just passing through." She hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." A few seats over, a young black woman in her early 30s sat with a toddler on her lap. Her suitcase was worn, scuffed at the corners, handle taped. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. Her name tag read Tamika. Her daughter, maybe 2 or 3 years old, tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, I want juice." Tamika opened her wallet. Empty. She forced a smile. "We'll get juice on the plane, baby." The little girl pouted and slumped back. Dwayne caught the exchange. He didn't move right away. He waited, observing. A few moments later, he walked over to the bar and ordered a cranberry juice and a fresh croissant. He placed them gently on the table beside Tamika, without a word. She looked up, startled. "Wait, what? You didn't have to—" He smiled softly. "I know, but I wanted to." The girl beamed, grabbing the juice. "Thank you," Tamika blinked, clearly recognizing him now. You're Dwayne Johnson," he nodded. "And you're a good mom. That's all that matters right now." For a moment her eyes glistened. Not from the juice, but from being seen. Across the room, a sharply dressed man in a Rolex and Italian loafers scoffed softly. His name was Gregory Harlan, hedge fund executive, early 60s. He leaned toward the woman next to him and muttered, "These celebrities, always looking for applause." Classic PR. Dwayne didn't flinch. But he heard it. And he remembered. 10 minutes later, Gregory's boarding call came through. As he rose, his phone buzzed. He fumbled, checked the screen, and his face dropped. His assistant had just canceled an urgent meeting with Dwayne Johnson Holdings. Too late, he made the connection. He turned slowly. Dwayne stood up and looked him in the eye. Not angry, just disappointed. "Power," Dwayne said quietly, "isn't what you keep. It's what you share." Gregory lowered his head and walked away. A woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a clipboard approached quietly. Her name tag read, Marielle, Lounge Supervisor. "Mr. Johnson," she said in a low voice, "I just want to personally thank you. Tamika's one of our temp workers. She was called in last minute for an overnight shift, then her sitter canceled. She's not even technically supposed to be in this lounge as a guest, but—" She trailed off, a little embarrassed. Dwayne smiled. "You did the right thing by not turning her away. She needed rest. So did her daughter." Marielle looked relieved. "You have no idea how hard it is to balance kindness and company policy." "I do," Dwayne said gently, "but kindness usually wins in the end." In the far corner sat a man in a camouflage jacket, reading an old paperback. His left hand trembled slightly as he sipped his coffee. Dwayne walked by, slowed, then stopped. "What are you reading?" The man looked up, weathered face, calm eyes. "The Old Man and the Sea," he said. "It's one of the few books that doesn't lie." Dwayne smiled. "Hemingway. Strong choice." They chatted for 5 minutes. The man's name was Raymond, Vietnam vet, on his way to visit his grandson for the first time in 11 years. "Life's funny," Raymond said. "You spend half of it fighting, and the other half trying to explain why." Dwayne sat beside him in silence for a while. No cameras, no audience. Just respect. The loudspeaker cracked. "Attention passengers on flight 2JX140 to NYC. Your shuttle is currently grounded due to mechanical checks. Estimated delay, 45 minutes. Groans echoed across the lounge. Dwayne checked his watch. He had 90 minutes total before his board meeting began. The delay meant he'd miss it. His phone buzzed. Maya. Should we cancel? Zoom in? Dwayne. No, this is better. He looked around the lounge. A single delay had created a moment. A shared pause. A rare leveling. Instead of complaining, Dwayne stood and walked back to the counter. Do you have any playing cards? Yes, actually, the barista said, surprised. Great, he grinned. Let's kill some time. Soon, a small group gathered near the coffee bar. Tamika and her daughter, Raymond, Marielle, even a young newlywed couple with backpacks and matching sweatshirts. They played a game of hearts. People laughed, shared small stories. For 30 minutes, no one was important. No one was above anyone else. They were just people, delayed in a lounge, living a moment. Dwayne didn't dominate the table. He didn't even win, but every person there would remember how they felt. The shuttle finally arrived. A private security agent approached Dwayne, ready to escort him first. He waved her off. Let the mom and kid go first. The agent blinked. Of course, sir. Tamika smiled shyly. Thank you again. For everything. Dwayne leaned down and whispered something in her daughter's ear. The little girl giggled and hugged his leg. Then, as they walked off, Dwayne turned to Marielle. Keep doing what you're doing, he said. The world needs people like you running it. She blinked rapidly, nodding. Back on the jet, Dwayne finally reclined in his seat. The skyline of Chicago faded behind him. His assistant called in through the jet's video system. Hey, I told them you'd miss the boardroom. They weren't happy. He raised an eyebrow. You tell them why? She smiled. I told them the truth. You were busy redefining power in a transit lounge. He grinned. The news didn't break like an explosion. It spread like a quiet breeze, gathering momentum with every click and share. It started with a blurry phone photo posted by a teenager on TikTok. Dwayne Johnson, seated in an airport lounge, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, playing cards with a group of strangers. The caption read, The Rock just played Go Fish with my grandma during a flight delay. He's the realest dude alive. That post went viral. Within hours, dozens of passengers from that day began sharing their own photos and videos. None of them were dramatic. Most were candid shots. Dwayne helping a janitor carry supplies, sitting cross-legged beside a crying child, handing a granola bar to a sleepy single mom. There were no lights, no handlers, no hashtags, just moments, genuine, human, unfiltered moments. And that's why it exploded. Mainstream media picked it up the next morning. CNN headline, Dwayne Johnson surprises passengers with kindness during lounge delay, New York Times. When The Rock was the pillow, humanity over fame in Terminal C. BuzzFeed, 23 times. The Rock was too pure for this world, Airport Edition. But the most shared comment came from a tweet by someone who never spoke to Dwayne that day. They just watched from afar. He didn't know anyone was filming. That's how you know it was real. Meanwhile, several hundred miles away in a sleek Manhattan high-rise, the upper floors of a billion-dollar media company buzzed with confusion. In the boardroom, 5 men in suits and 1 woman sat around a circular glass table. The mood was tense. The Rock had missed the quarterly meeting again. An assistant entered quietly and placed a sleek tablet on the table. On screen, a Zoom invite. The name read simply, DJ. He joined with no fanfare. His video clicked on. He sat on a hotel bed in a modest room. Behind him, a simple carry-on bag. No entourage, no background setup. Just a man who looked tired, but calm. Morning, he said. Dwayne, said Alan Kavanaugh, the CFO, his voice stiff. "We were expecting you in person." Dwayne nodded once. "I was in transit. We had several agenda items that needed your signature." "Understood," Dwayne said. "I'll sign whatever makes sense." "May I ask where you were, sir?" Alan pushed, clearly irked. Naomi Cheng, the company's CEO, leaned forward. "He was in Newark Terminal C," she said, tapping her own iPad. "I saw it all over the internet this morning." Dwayne looked directly into the camera. His voice softened. A young mom was sitting on the floor, cradling her daughter. She was about to faint from exhaustion. I gave her my seat. Silence fell over the room. "It wasn't a marketing move," he said. "It was a human one." Naomi spoke again. "We spend millions every year trying to craft the right message, trying to reach people where they are. You did it in sweats with a pack of playing cards." Dwayne offered a faint smile. "Sometimes the best way to lead," he said, "is to sit down." Back at the airport, Marielle, the veteran lounge manager, was working the morning shift when a courier arrived. He wore no uniform. He simply handed her a small black envelope with a wax seal. She opened it carefully. Inside, a handwritten note. "Marielle, you didn't ask for attention. You gave respect because it's who you are. That matters. That always matters. With gratitude, DJ, a donation receipt, $250,000 made to the National Association of Women in Hospitality in her name. An invitation, a handwritten boarding pass that read, 'Lifetime lounge access for Tamika and daughter.'" She sat down. The floor didn't shake. The walls didn't echo. But in her chest, something warm and steady bloomed. A few employees nearby watched quietly. No one said a word. Then Marielle whispered, "He didn't just see me, he remembered." In the following weeks, the viral storm faded. Another celebrity scandal, another flashy event took its place. But in the lounges in the terminals, something shifted. Airline staff who had once rolled their eyes at late travelers began offering water. Security officers exchanged small smiles with passengers. Managers began hosting monthly staff spotlights. The winners weren't always the fastest. They were the kindest. In dozens of airports across the country, copies of a single quote began appearing in employee break rooms. "Power isn't how loud you are. It's how gently you lift others when no one's looking." DJ. A few months later, Naomi called Dwayne directly. "We're launching it," she said. "Launching what?" "The Pause Initiative. Your idea." He had almost forgotten he'd suggested it. A program that placed trained compassion officers in lounges, that gave frontline workers weekly moments of reprieve, that turned quiet kindness into professional currency. It launched in 25 airports, then 100. By the end of the year, it was global. None of the commercials showed Dwayne's face. None of the ads mentioned him. He wanted it that way. "Let the work speak," he said. Nearly a year after the lounge moment, Dwayne boarded another flight. He was quiet, low-key, tucked behind sunglasses and a baseball cap. Halfway through the flight, the attendant handed him tea. As she set the cup down, she leaned close and whispered, "My brother was in the Pause Initiative. He was lost before that job. Now he trains new hires." She didn't wait for praise. She just smiled and walked away. Dwayne stared out the window, his tea untouched. The clouds below rolled like soft waves. Somewhere beneath them, millions of people moved through the noise of their daily lives. And maybe, just maybe, they moved with a little more grace. He never tweeted about that day. He never did a press run. He never sold merch. But in a world obsessed with being seen, he proved the quietest moments can be the most powerful. Because real power isn't about being first class. It's about what you do when you sit beside someone who doesn't have a seat. It's about the tone you use when no camera is rolling. It's about the kind of respect that doesn't ask for applause. That's the silent takeover. And that's how Dwayne Johnson rewrote what influence really means. Guys, thanks for watching this story. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let us know about your thoughts in the comment section. Also, subscribe the channel for daily stories notification.